Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. We have the new Hearthstone patch. Control Warrior was buffed big time. There was some nerfs to Nature Shaman, some nerfs to Hunters. It's like a brand new meta all over again, and there's a lot of adjustment going on. I don't think the meta is nearly settled. There will be many changes, but we already have some statistics. So in this video, I'm going to take a look at the top 14 best decks that you can play in this new meta. But before I tell you why Thaddius Warlock is the 14th best deck in the game and how good exactly Control Warrior is, let's hear a word from my sponsor who made it possible for me to spend time on analyzing all of this data. Today's video is sponsored by Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus, which is a tactical turn-based battle game based in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. I got started with Warhammer 40,000 with this, the original Space Marine back in the early 1990s, but it's kind of hard to put together a group to actually get a good play session nowadays, and Tacticus really fits that niche. There are basically two aspects to Tacticus. One is the combat itself, tactical combat on a hex-based maps, lasting through various challenges and campaigns. You start with Ultramarines, but there are many other factions available, including the latest addition, Tyranids. And in addition to tactical gameplay, Tacticus is also a hero collector, although in this hero collector every hero matters. You can build up even the weakest of heroes into formidable characters over time. Tacticus is available on Android and iOS. I have been playing it through an emulator on PC myself, and you can find a link to the game down below in the description. And then on to the decks themselves. At number 14 we have Thaddius Warlock, and Thaddius Warlock is rated a little bit low in this list, I think, because, well, Thaddius was nerfed, and people consequently stopped playing Thaddius Warlock a lot, so Thaddius Warlock has very low sample sizes. We don't have many games played with Thaddius Warlock, which is kind of a shame because Thaddius Warlock looks like it just doesn't care about the nerf all that much. It has lost like 2 percentage points in various matchups, various pretty close matchups, so obviously yeah, that is going to hurt. However, right now Thaddius Warlock is doing quite well because Thaddius Warlock is good against Control Warrior, and people are trying Control Warrior a lot, and Thaddius Warlock can just feast on that. The long-term success of Thaddius Warlock will depend on what is the meta balance. Is Control Warrior going to remain popular? If Control Warrior is going to remain popular, Thaddius Warlock will shine. If it's going to become much less popular, maybe a niche player again, then all those matchups that were weakened a little bit mean that Thaddius Warlock is at the risk of falling away from the top list. But Thaddius Warlock has proven to be surprisingly resilient. The nerf doesn't do nearly as much as I had thought, and Thaddius Warlock looks completely playable still. At number 13 we have the current best Demon Hunter deck in the game, and it's Relic Demon Hunter again. What happened to Outcast Demon Hunter? Well, it's rather simple. Outcast Demon Hunter gets awfully crushed by Control Warrior. People are playing Control Warrior a lot right now, which means that Outcast Demon Hunter, you just can't play it. You just can't. However, Outcast Demon Hunter still has plenty of really strong matchups. I mean, the rest of its matchup spread hasn't gone anywhere. So if Control Warrior numbers come down, Outcast Demon Hunter is going to come back, and also Relic Demon Hunter might move down again. So these are like these early days of a new patch. There's a new meta, there's some new exciting stuff that people are trying out. Things that work well against those are doing well, things that work poorly against that, those are doing less well. But Relic Demon Hunter, still a perfectly fine deck and got a bit of a boost from the patch. At number 12 we have Undead Priest. Undead Priest remains pretty good, and Undead Priest has the upside of being strong against Arcane Hunter. You are just able to kill Arcane Hunters reasonably well with Undead Priest, but as a major downside you're miserable against Control Warrior. And Control Warrior is really popular right now, so the good sides of Undead Priest don't really get to shine nearly as much as they should, because the meta right now in the first days after the patch is incredibly hostile to it. At number 11 we have Curse Warlock. Curse Warlock just keeps performing no matter the meta. Control Warrior is not a terrible opponent for Curse Warlock. Curse Warlock is something like 52, maybe 53% against Control Warrior, so I wouldn't say it's really strong against Control Warrior, but it doesn't mind meeting a lot of Control Warriors, and that's why Curse Warlock is doing quite alright for itself at the moment. At number 10 we have the best Shaman deck in the game at the moment. Nature Shaman is gone. Well, maybe it's not gone. I mean, the numbers on small sample sizes for Nature Shaman show that it might still be a playable deck, but it is clearly weaker than it used to be, and people just aren't playing it right now. So Maybe it won't be able to come back, but Totem Shaman seems to be the reliable Shaman deck for this expansion. Not necessarily one of the absolute best decks in the game, but always right there so that it's always able to climb. It's just always able to get the job done, even if it's not really fancy. And then at number 9 we have the newcomer, the big thing, Control Warrior. Well, what about Control Warrior's performance? Control Warrior's performance it's divided. There are many strong matchups for Control Warrior. Control Warrior is doing really well against some decks like Rainbow Mage as well. Rainbow Mage is not featured in this list right now. Rainbow Mage doesn't appreciate having 20% of the ladder being Control Warriors, but that may change in the future as the numbers stabilize. But Control Warrior still has a bunch of weak matchups as well. Pure Paladin, Hound Hunter, Thaddius Warlock, Drum Druid. There are many decks that can and will beat Control Warrior. Obviously, Control Warrior is now getting all sorts of experimentation. There were tens of lists on HS Replay. This is the one that I liked the best. This seems to be the best forming at the moment. I don't think this is perfect. In particular, I don't like that this list only includes one copy of Trial by Fire, because Trial by Fire seems to be very, very strong at 6 mana. So I would like to see this deck ditch something like a Shield Slam or something in order to put a second Trial by Fire in. And then this deck would be pretty good. There are also some Renatal versions of Control Warrior around, but the non-Renatal versions seem to be always stronger than the Renatal list. So you just want to run it with 30 cards, so that you will get your Odin and you will blast. As on the previous weeks, there are 2 viable alternatives for playing Druid. There's the more aggressive Treant Druid, and then there's a little bit slower Drum Druid. And right now in this Control Warrior meta again, Treant Druid suffered a little bit from Control Warrior entering the skin, because Treant Druid is typically not able to generate board after board after board, so Treant Druid at some point will run out of juice and then Control Warrior will win. And that's why Treant Druid is number 8, whereas its sibling Drum Druid is number 7. And it's notable that in the Control Warrior matchup, by far the best card in this deck is Topiar to Sharpagazer. With Topiar, you just have infinite threats. Control Warrior will not be able to remove all of them, and once something sticks, then boom, it's bye-bye for the Control Warrior. So Drum Druid, currently the stronger of the 2 Druid archetypes. Last week Treant Druid was slightly stronger. It depends a little bit on what the other meta looks like. Mech Rogue might not be making big headlines anymore, but it's still the 6th best deck in the game, still running the Scourge Illusionist Mothership build. There's just not been any way to replace this build at the top. Scourge Illusionist and Mothership are both a little bit disappointing cards in Mech Rogue, and I still wait for some new innovation that would actually probably ditch the big name from the Mech Rogue altogether, ditch that package, put something else in, do even better. But that still hasn't been found. So this is the best we've got. Now that WuLing's Token Paladin last week broke the stranglehold of Pure Paladin of the class, Pure Paladin decks have started to see a little bit of innovation. For example, this Pure Paladin list includes Jukebox Totems. There were a couple of different lists that included Jukebox Totems, just trying to find some more answers, trying to make Pure Paladin slightly stronger. This list looks a little bit better than the older versions of Pure Paladin, but it still looks a little bit weaker than WuLing's Token Paladin that is built on a non-pure shell. And it's right here at number 4, Token Paladin built by WuLing, the same deck that I featured last week. Then I didn't know it was WuLing's deck, but it's WuLing's deck. And yeah, this just puts tokens on the board and blasts and Crusader Aura, and it's just wonderful. And Amytos really coming to her own in this deck, because when you have lots of tokens, then Amytos buffs can be really strong. All Amytos abilities just shine in a deck that puts a lot of minions on the board. But the number 3 deck in the game is actually Unholy Death Knight. It's just old Unholy Death Knight, where you put in the Primus. I already featured this deck last week, so last week we saw for the first time people starting to give older decks a chance. So okay, maybe this deck like has 1 card from the latest expansion, maybe it doesn't have any. I'm just going to play a little bit more of it. And as some of those decks started to be experimented on, Unholy Death Knight proved to be very strong, and it's very strong in this meta as well because it had a great matchup against Control Warrior. This deck builds some boards, and Control Warrior can't answer all of them. Unholy Death Knight wins, and 3rd best deck in the game. Number 2 we have Hound Hunter. Hound Hunter was hit by 2 nerfs in the patch. Costumed Singer lost 1 point of attack, Hollow Hound lost 2 points of health. How is Hound Hunter still here? Alright, Hound Hunter's matchup spread is a little bit weaker. There are more weaknesses for Hound Hunter right now. So the big thing that's really keeping Hound Hunter here is that Hound Hunter is still good against Control Warrior. And when it's good against Control Warrior and people are playing so much Control Warrior right now, that means that Hound Hunter can just ignore the other weakened matchups. However, once Control Warrior numbers start to go down a little bit, I expect that those weaknesses will come to Hound Hunter, and its position at the very top of the food chain is under threat. However, there is another Hunter deck, and this Hunter deck is the best Hunter deck in the game. It was also nerfed by Costumed Singer losing 1 point of attack, but it just does not care. Secret Arcane Hunter. It has lost much less than Hound Hunter, and it looks like it's still going to remain dominant, and I expect this deck to dominate the game in the future as well. Just a wonderful, wonderful, powerful deck, and currently the best deck you can play in order to climb. But if you have waited for a chance to play Control Warrior, then yes, Control Warrior is playable at the moment, and you can actually climb with that, so the patch did do some things. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.